A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express paper using the Chandigarh edition. Now, before coming on to the front page, today's format is having the international section before. So we'll cover the world page or the international news first, and then we'll proceed forward. Now, on the international section, one of the most important news was the developments associated with Russia. The Wagner Group. Wagner is a mercenary group, a private army, which helps Russia in its military operations across the world, like Syria, Africa, as well as Ukraine. And it came into being in 2014. And it helped Russia acquire territories of Crimea. So there was this news about the Wagner Group, which has gone into mutiny or in protest against the Russian ruling establishment. So let us read more about the Wagner Group and what all things happened. So first of all, we have a map over here. So the Wagner Group, you can imagine they are somewhere over here. They were located. There are troops of about 25,000 soldiers. Overall deployment of Russia is about 3 lakh. So of this 25 is of the Wagner Group, and these people are very, very ruthless and die hard. It's a very ruthless group. Now these people, the Wagner Group, they had a problem with the Russian defense minister and the army chief, the military chief. They were saying that the Russian forces are not conducting this Ukraine war rightfully. Plus, there was some concern that the Russian military, wanted to have control over the assets of the Wagner Group or the private mercenary groups as well, for better command for the war. So they had a problem with this. So the Wagner Group, the leader of the Wagner Group, started proceeding towards Moscow, the capital of Russia. And before that, they acquired the Southern Command of Russia, the headquarters of the Southern Command. I hope you can understand this is Russia over here. So South is Ukraine. So first of all, we will come to the Russian Southern Command of Russia, which is based out of Rostov. So they took control over this territory, this headquarter. And there they demanded that you have to give us this defense minister and the army chief. Just hand them over to me, the Wagner head was saying. So obviously this could not have been accepted. So if he said that if this is not accepted, we will move over from Rostov to Moscow. They went 200 kilometers towards Moscow before some sort of an agreement came through. And before the agreement, the President Putin made strong remarks against the Wagner Group, and he said that they are traitors and very strong action will be taken against them. In the meanwhile, negotiations were going on with the Belarusian president Lukashenko. Lukashenko is acting on behalf of Russia. So Lukashenko and Wagner Group. So negotiation took place, and it was decided that they will withdraw from this mutiny. They will not proceed towards Moscow. And in return, the Russian government will not seek action against the Wagner Group, given their long-standing association with Russia and given the help that the Wagner Group has done for Russia. So that was the arrangement. So this is what has happened. Now, because of this, there are certain questions being raised about Putin's power, Putin's authority. Putin is the president of Russia. The question is, first of all, we see that there is discontent within Russia about Putin's administration, Putin's role in the war. The Ukraine war has lingered on for 16 months. So that is a lot of lives have been lost. A lot of Russian soldiers have lost. It has hampered the Russian economy. Now we are hearing that a military group, private military, mercenaries, but they are also openly going against the Russian Putin. So they are going against him. So this poses certain questions. And here again, we see that Wagner Group has gotten its way more or less. We don't hear about defense minister or army chief, what has happened to them. But Wagner Group has avoided punishment, which is very, very good concession. So this raises questions on Putin's power. Now, this situation was so bad that it is being alleged that Russian diplomat, one of the Russian diplomats, flew to China. He went towards China to seek support from the Chinese. Because you see, your capital is under threat. These people, Wagner Group is moving towards your capital, Moscow. And who knows, they could have had a coup and removed the Putin administration from there. So this was a very, very serious situation. Now we have an explainer section on this later in the newspaper. Actually, the last page that I'm going to do, so one before the sports page. So that is also there. You can read it, but more or less I have covered it. So this was the map of Russia. This is about the Wagner Group, some additional reading that I used over here. Okay. So who is in charge of the Wagner Group? So Wagner Group is a mercenary group and it is founded by Dmitry Utkin, a former Russian officer, and financier Yevgeny Prigozhin. So when we are talking about the Russian, the leader of the Wagner Group, we are talking about Prigozhin. And Prigozhin is now will be moving towards Belarus, and he has withdrawn from the movement. Okay. Now we see another news. This is about Pakistan. Pakistan Assembly passes bill to limit period of disqualification for lawmakers. So in disqualification, you understand? We have MPs, MLAs, etc. So they are elected to their respective houses, state legislative assembly, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, whatever. Like in Indian context also that is there. So disqualification means that an elected representative, be it MP, MLA, whosoever, they lose their membership to their house. So that is disqualification. They are no longer members. They are no longer MPs or MLAs. Now in Pakistan, there is this law that a MP or an MLA could be disqualified for lifetime. Completely disqualified. They can never get re-elected because they are disqualified for lifetime. So that could happen. So the former Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was disqualified for lifetime. So this took place in 2017. Now a bill is a proposal for a law. So bill has been passed by the Pakistan Assembly that this issue of lifetime, this disqualification of lifetime thing can be removed, and the maximum ban on contesting election is 5 years. So that is the proposal. So to limit the lifetime disqualification of lawmakers to 5 years. So that is the thing, and they are saying that this is being done to help Nawaz Sharif contest elections again and again become the Prime Minister. Now, when we talk about disqualification, naturally UPSC will not ask us about the laws of Pakistan. They will ask us in context of India. So in India also you should know about disqualification. Please do read about this. And we have had, of course, the famous case of Rahul Gandhi also. He's not the only one this year. Many others have been disqualified as well. Now, here it is, disqualification of convicted representatives in India. So let's have a very quick look on this thing. And by the way, this topic is part of your GS2, and we do expect this year's mains paper to have a question on disqualification. So yeah, So disqualification of MPs, MLAs or elected representatives comes from Section 8 of the Representation of the People's Act. So it is coming from Section 8 of Representation of People's Act. So this provides for disqualification. Now in 2013, a Supreme Court passed an important judgment known as the Lily Thomas versus Union of India, along with Lok Prahari versus Union of India. And it ruled that any member of parliament or member of legislative assembly or council, whatever, you get it, right? Any member of these houses, if they are convicted of a crime, and given a minimum 2-year imprisonment, minimum 2 years imprisonment. If it is 1.5 years, 1 year, 7 months, no. If it is at least 2 years of imprisonment, then in that case, they lose membership of the house with immediate effect. So I'm only talking about convicted representatives over here. Okay, so they lose membership of the house with immediate effect. So now from point of view, Lily Thomas versus Union of India is associated with disqualification of convicted representative. This is something for your prelims. Likewise, Lok Prahari versus Union of India. So at the moment, I'm only talking about this part of disqualification. There are other grounds also for disqualification. So from exam point of view, I think I feel more of this thing can be there, the righteousness of this provision. Okay, now we can move on to the front page that we have. So first of all, we have there is the statement from Yogi Adityanath, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. So he was attending some event of Indian Express and commemorated the founder Ramnath Goenka, who's no more. Okay. So he said over there that emergency is a black chapter of Indian history, and media role key in a democracy. So why there is this talk of emergency? Why are we talking about emergency? In fact, he is not the only one. Many other BJP leaders are talking about it. Naturally, BJP leaders only will talk. Okay. So today marks 48 years of the emergency, right? So that's why we're talking about this. So I'm not going to go more into the emergency thing. Then media role key in a democracy. So you can just think of it from JS2 again, the role of media in a democracy, or from essay point of view, what role does it play? Why is it important to have a vibrant, for a vibrant democracy? Why do we need media? What role does it play in citizen engagement? So that way we can look at this topic. Then we have a news concerning international relations. We heard before that Prime Minister Modi had gone to the US. On his way back from US towards India, he had a stop in Egypt. Egypt, I hope you can visualize where it is on the map of Africa. And there is a very famous Nile River that flows through it. Okay, and now that's your homework. Please do visit the map of Egypt on your atlas and locate the Nile River and other important landforms on their map, since it is in news. Okay, so he goes to Egypt, Prime Minister Modi, and there they sign pact on strategic partnership. Fine, so they sign pact on strategic partnership, and they sign a series of pacts on defense, trade and investment, science, and cultural ties. So multiple things on this they talk. And here again, we have the news on this thing. So the strategic partnership will broadly have 4 elements. So these are again political defense, security, economic engagement, scientific and academic collaboration, and people to people contacts. Okay. Now, this visit that we see of Prime Minister Modi towards Egypt, and where he meets LCC, his counterpart in Egypt, this is coming in the backdrop of Egypt not withdrawing from the G20 working group meeting that is taking place. So probably it is on the backdrop of uh, Egypt not coming to India for some G20 meeting. So maybe some discontent is there, some issue is there. So Prime Minister Modi has gone on to talk on such matter. So maybe that is why this thing was scheduled. Okay. There, Prime Minister Modi was awarded with the Order of the Nile. So like we have Bharat Ratna. So there they have Order of the Nile. This is an award, and this is the highest civilian honor of Egypt. And this is 13th highest state honor which has been conferred to Prime Minister Modi. Okay. So there they talked on multiple issues, and besides this, Prime Minister Modi visited the Great Pyramids of Giza on the outskirts of Cairo, Heliopolis Commonwealth World War Grave Cemetery in India, Cairo. Cairo is the capital of Egypt. We have images of all this on the later page. So Pyramids of Giza, Heliopolis Commonwealth War Grave. Why does he visit? Because our Indian soldiers had fought in the World War, and their grave cemetery is there. Besides, he visited Al-Hakim Mosque, which belongs to the Fatimid era. Fatimid Caliphate, that is the time period of 909 to 1171 CE. Okay. So around this time period. And this mosque is belonging to the Shia community, and the Bora community is in India also. So the Bora community is taking care of this mosque. They are responsible for the upkeep, maintenance of this mosque. Okay, so this was front page. We are done. We'll scroll further. Yeah. I'll zoom out first. So locals NDRF tackle nature's might, save 9 as river swells. So we are having these flood issues. So we are having more and more of floods, issue of urban floods that are coming to the forefront. So we'll discuss that in sometime later. And here again, for your reference, we can refer to the National Disaster Management Authority page. And from there, we can see the guidelines on flood management and urban floods. In fact, in the year 2016, a question was asked on urban floods. Okay, we'll scroll further. Now we have something about Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Consumer Commission fines Bank of Baroda for not providing subsidy under Prime Minister Awas Yojana. Awas means housing. So very quickly, we'll look into the scheme also. We'll revise the scheme. We're not going into the news. Not important for you. Okay. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is an initiative of Government of India, so as to provide affordable housing for both urban as well as rural population. And for this, we have two Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. One is Shahari or urban, and other is Gramin or rural. So I've discussed this earlier also. So the urban one is dealt by Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, while the rural component is dealt by Ministry of Rural Development. So this will provide housing support, and in fact the catchword is housing for all. So 2 crore houses, they want to make 2 crore affordable houses by 31st March 2022. Okay. Now some important facts. This scheme is a centrally sponsored scheme. Centrally sponsored scheme means there is financial contribution of center as well as states. It's 60-40, 60 center, 40 states. Then this scheme will converge with other schemes of the center, like having toilets, Saubhagya scheme for universal electricity connection. Naturally, you have a house, you will need to have electricity connection. Then Ujjwal Yojana, this is for the LPG connection, access to drinking water, and Jan Dhan banking facilities. I think all of this would have made sense to you. Now, Jan Dhan banking facilities, that is having a bank account, and so bringing in more population into the fold of banking services. So Jan Dhan scheme, that is the objective, and it will lead to financial inclusion. Now, how is this leading to financial inclusion? Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. In Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, houses will be made. The houses will be made naturally. But center is not making houses, or states are not really making houses. Basically, people who want to make houses, they will need loan. They will need money. So they will have to borrow that money. So under this scheme, they are getting subsidy on interest. Right? So subsidy on interest is being provided for making affordable housing. Now, if I'm not wrong, there has been some addition to this Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, where rental component, as well as there's a talk about hostel-like facilities to also be there for migrant workers, etc. Because you make a house in your rural place, but migrant workers will go to the cities and work, so they will again not have affordable housing. So such components are being considered. Okay, so finance, the government has approved so much finance. Yeah, eligibility criteria. Now, is this scheme limited to the below poverty line population? Most of the government schemes are, but not this one. So this is providing for population within the economic weaker section whose annual household income is less than 3 lakhs per annum. And it can go up till, like, there is middle income group is also covered under this, and it can go from 12 lakhs to 18 lakhs per annum household income, not individual, household income. So all this detail is provided over here. Okay, so my focus was more on the pre part actually when I was discussing this Awas Yojana. You can see the situation over here. Okay. So we're just scrolling down. So nothing over here of importance. Now let us see what is happening in government and politics. So here we have a news concerning Manipur. And this is not the Manipur issue that we're talking about, the Meitei, Kuki, Naga. No, we are not talking about that issue. We have a news concerning army releasing 12 insurgents after they were stopped by a mob. So this was done by the army. Now this looks like a case study scenario. Ethics case study scenario over here. Now what really happened? Army had captured these 12 insurgents who belonged to, it's difficult to pronounce for me, Kanglai Yavol Kanalup, KYKL group. These militants, insurgent group, had played a role in 2015 where they ambushed and killed 20 soldiers. So 20 soldiers had died. So this was in 2015. So we are in 2023. They captured these 12 insurgents and they were into the custody of army. So naturally they were taking them forward. They were taking them into their custody, maybe their base, wherever. So en route that, they encountered a mob. They encountered a mob that was comprising of local residents led by women. So they demanded the release of these 12 insurgents. Fine, so this was the situation. So, mob. Now, such a situation arises. It can happen in the case study also, GS4. So, like, let's say you are the army commander or the person responsible for the custody. How will you deal with such a mob? So, that's sort of a question can be asked in ethics case study. Now, this reminds me of another situation in 2017 where a human shield was made. Okay. So this is a ethics case study kind of scenario more than anything else. Now here, army first they people concerned first they made appeals that please let us go. So they did, the negotiations failed, and eventually they decided that rather than using force, kinetic force is mentioned. Kinetic force is referring to bullets, which will lead to a lot of loss of life. They decided to hand over the 12 insurgents. So that is the decision that the military had taken. So this is a case scenario, case study kind of a situation. Like, how would you deal with such a situation? How could have you done it differently? Right. So yeah. So cost benefit analysis has to be done in certain cases. Now, moving on, this is the images that I was talking about from the Prime Minister's Egypt visit. We'll zoom out. So this is the Pyramid of Giza. This is the this is the masjid actually. So the Halaki Mosque in Cairo, and then we have the Cairo's Heliopolis Commonwealth War Cemetery. Right. Okay. So I find nothing more. Besides this, we had this Patna talks or Patna conclave that took place of the opposition leaders. So you can see Rahul Gandhi and many other political leaders. So there is this talk about political unity, opposition unity against the BJP. Now, this may seem like mere political news, but such questions related to political party, their functioning, the trends in politics, this can be asked, actually has been asked in the GS2 paper. So very brief assessment of this talk is given over here. So 4 or 5 points are there. We'll cover this one by one. So here, first point, the Patna chief minister took a key role here. He played the role of organizing the meeting. He coordinated the meeting quite tactfully over here. At the same time, no official designation, no formal designation of a coordinator or convener was made. Okay, so this if the official or formal announcement is made, then it will upset other political parties. Okay, so this was the first point. Then Aam Aadmi Party and Congress in particular, they have a problem. They have legacy issues. So they were sitting together despite their tensions. Then this is about Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. So she has problem with Congress as well as the Communist Party. In Bengal, Communist Party and Congress contest against her party. So she was also there, and she did not use harsh words against the people in the opposition sitting with her. Then, in the midst of the prominent opposition leaders, Rahul Gandhi was at the center stage. He continued to remain so, somewhere indicating that Indian National Congress is probably the hub of several other political parties, regional political parties. This is the central face or the middle ground. And some jokes from the RJD chief Lalu Prasad Yadav, some humor from him. Now coming on to the editorial page. Now before going forward, let me show you as to which all articles I am taking up and which I am not. So this very briefly we will cover. This is about the all party meeting. So very briefly. Then this one, the thaw in Paris. This is about the recent summit, Global Financial Pact on Climate Change. So this seems important. And then we have an article from General Huda, the big picture in Manipur, where we get much more insights about the meaty Naga and Kuki issue concerning Manipur. So that we will take up. Besides this, we had some news about Indo-US relations. That is, interests have taken precedence over values in Indo-US relationship. Now, fine. So, what are the key interests of Indo-US? The values, democratic values, etc. So, interests have taken over. So, right now, I'm not doing it. We have done it quite a lot. Civil code, we did it recently only. So, you please, if you want, you can read this. And old friends in a changing world. This is again with reference to Indo-America relations, but with more focus now on climate change and food security. So for the time being, I am not doing this, but I am aware of this thing. We'll take it up later. These topics will come up again. Okay. The task in Manipur now. By the way, we don't have much of a task covering this editorial. So the newspaper is saying that yes, this all-party meeting is a good thing. It is a good thing, and this meeting was chaired by the Home Minister. Okay, so this will give space for opposition leaders and other stakeholders to work together. So that in that sense, it will be good. Besides this, it is a very critical of the government, where it is saying that. This government was double engine sarkar, as Prime Minister Modi says. That is, at the center there is BJP, at the state it is BJP. So things should have been very good. However, this double engine sarkar did not work. The state relinquished its authority in the wake of the crisis. It was not up to the mark in the face of adversity. Moving on, thaw in Paris. Thaw, you know what is thaw? You see, the ice freezes. So the iciness in relationship, it is bad relationship. So there is a freeze. So thaw means melting. When the ice starts to melt, it becomes soft. So that is thaw. So thaw in Paris would mean that there is some sort of a softening between the developing and the developed countries. Now, what happened in Paris? In Paris, there was a summit took place, which is the Global Financial Pact on Climate Change, including even our finance minister was here. So, Global Financial Pact on Climate Change. So this was there. So President Macron, that is the president of France, was obviously heading it, and he made some concluding remarks. So he said, with reference to this finance over here, he said that there should be some sort of changes made when it comes to multilateral institutions which give finances, like World Bank, IMF, etc. So there should be some sort of an amendment made catering to the climate shocks. So in case of extreme weather events, when there is this massive floods or landslides or earthquakes, when such earthquake is not a extreme weather event, but when such events to take place, it hampers the state's economy. It brings them back considerably, and it affects the state's ability or the country's ability to pay back this money, the money that they had borrowed. So this should be dealt as a public finance shock. It should be dealt as a public finance shock, and there should be some sort of a concession to that state. So a 2-year pause on repayments after an extreme weather event. So something like that can be done. Presently, Pakistan is reeling under this issue. Pakistan has borrowed from IMF and many other agencies, but now they had this massive floods, and because of which, obviously, their focus is on disaster management, rehabilitation of the population. So their ability to pay back is not there. So there should be some sort of a buffer in case of an extreme weather event. It should be treated as a public finance shock. So this proposal was made. Besides this, when we talk about climate funding or financing related to climate, or another good word, climate financing architecture, we always talk about $100 billion fund, 100 billion annual fund. So the developed countries had made a commitment to the developing countries that they would be providing them $100 billion of annual fund. Why? So as the developing countries can transition, can make a transition towards clean economy, green economy, right? So that is why. So with the help of transfer of technology or towards renewable forms of energy, they could move towards that direction. So that is the goal. Now we have always seen that developed countries have not met their commitment of 100 billion annual fund. In fact, total outlay has been $30 billion fund since 2009. So 100 billion annual. Every year 100 billion is nowhere near. And they have been resisting it. But now, given the extreme weather events, the shocks that is taking place, the developed countries seem to be open to the idea of reviving this 100 billion annual fund. So that is a thing that has come up. Now we will have to see what really happens or what really transpires at the COP28, which takes place in Dubai. So prior to this Paris summit, we had the Berlin summit, where they were discussing about uh, climate funding, climate financing, the obligations of the developed countries in terms of financing as well as developing countries. So there, the developed countries had more or less backed out of their commitments. But in the Paris summit, which has eventually taken place, there they are more open for allocation of funds to the developing countries. At the same time, we hear about this concession of public finance shock. So this is kind of a course correction. That's how this newspaper puts it. I keep saying newspaper because this is editorial, which is written by the staff of this newspaper. Now coming to the next article on Manipur. Now this article is not merely confining itself to the tensions between the Meiteis and Kuki community, which we all know about it, we have all read about it. Here it is telling us about the bigger picture, that is the clashes amongst the various ethnicities, primarily the Meiteis population which is living in the plain regions. This is the map of Manipur. So the plain you can identify, this is the plain region over here. Here the Meiteis community is staying and they are the majority community. Then we have the Kuki community. This is the hilly region, as you can see. They are a Kuki community. Their majority, it is over here. And by the way, this region that I have marked, the Kukis are demanding this territories for a separate state, the Kuki state. So this is the Kuki area, which is marked in green. And on the top, you can see Nagaland. So the hilly region, the people of the Naga hills. This is the Naga region. So Naga, Kuki, and Meiteis, the plain region. Okay, so it's talking about the ethnic clashes between them. The larger issue, this issue has been going on for a very, very long period of time. So that we are going to see. Then what measures should be taken? So that is also mentioned in this article. Now, the immediate trigger for the violence that took place between the Meiteis and the Kuki community, it is belonging to the following triggers. Trigger means what instigated this clash. So it is land rights, anti-poppy drive, illegal immigration. So concerned among Meiteis that Kukis and Nagas are settling in their plain areas. So they are not happy with that they will become minority. So like that, right? So concerns about illegal immigration. Then very importantly, the Manipur High Court directive on scheduled tribe status for the Meiteis community. So Meiteis community was granted by this High Court that they should be given scheduled tribe status, and this bothered the Kukis in particular. The Kuki, which is, so they were not happy with this status that was given to them. By the way, Supreme Court had asked the court, Manipur High Court, to revise their decision. They were not happy that Meiti, according to them, did not qualify this. Okay, so these were the triggers. Now, let us look at the larger picture. And before looking at that, we have a quote on ethnic conflict, and which you can use it in your essay writing also, or GS answer writing also. And talking about GS1, communalism, so there it can be taken up, and society, communal mindset, and GS3, internal security. Okay. So here the quote is, ethnic conflict is caused by the fear of the future. That is what will happen in the future. For example, Metis is concerned that they will become a minority. While at the same time, the Kuki community, the ethnic Kuki community, they are concerned that their interests are not being looked after. On a later date, their interests will be compromised. So normally it is like this. So ethnic conflict is caused by what will happen in the future, the fear of the future. Lived through the past, that in the past also something like this had happened, so future also it may happen. So it is caused by the fear of the future and lived by the past. Who knows, it is asked in the essay also, essay as well. Yeah, GS is always there. Now let us see what are the concerns of different communities in Manipur. So coming to the Nagas, I hope you can visualize in your mind now where Nagas are. So Nagas are concerned as to what will happen with reference to the Naga Accord, the Naga peace deal with the center. So they're concerned that whatever is the outcome, it may affect its interest in the state of Manipur. Like there is a concern that this region will become part of the proposed Nagaland, so Naga area. So this may become part of it. Manipur may oppose that. So there's some concerns associated with this, or maybe they are not part of this Naga deal. Who knows? So they are concerned about this. Yeah, the Meiteis are concerned about immigration to the plains of the other communities. So and their concerns that in a majority they enjoy the condition of majority, but with the immigration they may become minority. So their affluence in the state will come down. Cookies have least to be concerned about. But yeah, there is emergence of Kuki militant groups in this region, which has actually unleashed violence. Now, talking about the Kuki itself, there was something known as SOO, suspension of operation against the Kuki militant groups. So when the suspension of operations had taken place, these militant groups were not rehabilitated into normal spheres of economy. So militants, you can imagine insurgents, their livelihood is based on the means from the gun, right? They are dependent on that. So now they have to be rehabilitated into other means of livelihood. So that has not happened. So since 15 years of suspension took place in 2008, this has not happened till now. So therefore they have again got back into arms. So that is the concerns. Beyond this, there are other groups also, like Naga also have their own groups, that like the NSCN group. So they are also continuing to run their camps in this region. So we have Naga population, so they are also continuing to do it. Right. Okay. Now what needs to be done? So addressing these fears requires to adopt a long-term strategy. So first of all, these armed groups have to be taken to task, and there should be cessation of violence. So first thing should be Meiti and Kuki, the violence, so that has to be ceased. And then dealing with the separate militant groups. We can look at the rehabilitation of these militant groups. Sorry, the points I've mentioned, there is some variance, but please understand. Cessation of violence, and then we can talk about rehabilitation of these various militant outfits who have surrendered. Then the state must play the role of a key arbitrator. State is a government. They should play the role of the key arbitrator. Whatever the concerns are there with the Nagas, the Meiteis, and the Kukis, they need to be assured. So some sort of an assurance must be given. In fact, somebody who is concerned about the future based on what has happened in the past, the best you can do is give them a sense of assurance. Then the long term, something needs to be done to address these long term issues dealing with identity and the fears that they have, right? So sense of, again that is part of the assurance. Besides this, we should engage with Myanmar and deal better with the Indo-Myanmar border. Many of these militant outfits, they escape to Myanmar and then come back where there is a very porous border. So they go back and then again come back and unleash terror. So this has to be solved. Okay, so this was about the Manipur issue, the big picture. Now moving on, we are on to the business page. Yeah, banks' reading system to track spends on outward remittances. What is outward remittances? So remittances means money that is going from one country to another. Normally we have inward remittances, that is money. We have our relatives in Canada, US, etc. They send money back to their families. Likewise, there are Indians who are sending their children to Canada, US, UK for study, or they may be sending their children for medical treatment, whatever. So we also want a system whereby Indians can send money outside of their country for whatever reason, be it medical treatment, overseas education, travel, etc. So to allow for money to go from India to other countries, to Indians of course, there is the RBI launched the liberalized remittances scheme, which allows for money to go from India to foreign country so as to deal with these issues, travels, startups and business investments, giving gift to a relative, whatever, medical treatment. Okay, or we can, so outward remittances, that is remittances that is going outward, and for that liberalized remittances scheme was introduced. Now the union government had previously announced that the liberalized remittances scheme, when this happens, when the money is going outwards, in that case, there will be tax deduction. Of tax will be collected at 20%. So with the 20% tax under the liberalized remittances scheme, naturally, when the banks are facilitating the remittance, the outward remittance, the banks have to track the money and accordingly the levy of tax will take place. So that would have been very simple. If money is going out, the bank obviously knows where the money is going. But the problem arose when the government provided for exemptions. Government said that up to 7 lakh rupees, there will be no tax. Beyond this, tax would be collected. So in such a situation, it became difficult for the banks. It became difficult for the banks to track. It became a bit complicated. So therefore, the banks are readying systems to track spends on outward remittances. So that's it. So we have these two terms, liberalized remittances scheme, right? So you learn about this and we know that there is a tax being levied and the exemption is 7 lakh rupees. With the green transition, India has the opportunity to become a new energy hub. This is from the managing director of Honeywell Automation, which makes these engines, etc. So they are saying that India, which energy hub they're talking about, alternative fuels like ethanol based fuel, biofuel. So they are talking about that. So it need not be EVs, etc. It can also be ethanol based fuels or biofuels which can be used. So that would also be green transition. And given India's potential, the large land that India has, plus agricultural waste that is generated, like stubble, etc. So it can be processed into biofuel. It can be processed into ethanol. That's a better way of putting it. Okay. And this company will facilitate, is interested in that domain. Fine. So eco-fining technology can help take the bio-based feedstock. So it's talking about some technology that they have developed. Now, one more thing it is saying that in the Western countries, we need not mimic the Western countries on this transition when we are talking about biofuels. The Western countries, they have surplus feedstock, surplus food is there. So in their country, vegetable oil, uh, meat oil, whatever is there, they are directly converted into biofuel. But in India's context, where there is concern about food security, we can look at agricultural waste, the cellulose-based plant materials, stems, etc. So that which we are not eating, stubble. So that can be used, and this can be refined into ethanol, processed into ethanol. Now moving on to this inflation thing, something from RBI. So RBI says that it will look to keep the consumer price index or CPI or inflation to 4%. However, challenges remain. Particular interest is the El Nino. El Nino is a weather event. When this takes place, we have hampered monsoon or delayed monsoons on the Indian subcontinent. So when there is delayed monsoon, naturally it will affect the production of food grains. This is the agriculture season, the Kharif season. So it will get affected. So this may lead to food inflation. Now in the recent times, obviously El Nino thing will affect us from some time from now. But recent times, inflation has been kept under check, especially food inflation, by allowing for imports and cuts in duties on certain goods. So if some things are coming into India, it's getting imported. So there is less tax being levied to encourage imports of food grains into India. Okay, India to remove retaliatory custom duties on 8 US products. So this is a reflection of India US visit that had taken place. So India is removing retaliatory custom duties. So in 2018, US had imposed import duty on certain things like steel product, aluminum products, etc. on grounds of national security. So they levied like 25% tax on things coming from India. So in response, India also levied increased taxes on things coming from US to India. So retaliatory. Right. So this is it from the news. This is about the explainer section that you can see. This is the Wagner issue. So we have already covered that. So we are not doing it at the moment. So this is all I have from today's news analysis. So thank you for streaming into our channel IASPrimers.